Ever wondered why your friend's phone call leaves you emotionally flat? Or why a dinner with certain relatives feels like running a marathon, while the neighbor's golden retriever greets you like you're single-handedly responsible for dinner? Here's the blunt, slightly unkind truth. Humans are complicated. Pets are gloriously simple. This video promises 50 psychological reasons humans can feel draining, and why our pets somehow manage to be more emotionally economical. We're going to move fast, cluster by cluster. Think of this as a guided tour through the human mind's long, twisty museum of needs, habits, and awkward coping strategies. For each reason, you'll get a short name, a quick explanation, a tiny human example you've probably witnessed, and one neat contrast, what a pet would do instead. By the end, you should be nodding, chuckling, and maybe drafting a one-line boundary script in your head. Cluster 1. Cognitive patterns, the brain's annoying reruns. 1. Negativity bias. Our brains are wired to prioritize bad news. It's a survival relic. That means someone reliving last week's awkward moment for the 200th time feels like emotional static. Example, your coworker replays a presentation error like it's a catastrophe, dragging you into corrective brainstorming even though the audience already forgot. A dog shrugs, wags, moves on to the next snack. 2. Rumination. Repeated looping on the same thought makes emotions stickier and louder. People who ruminate tend to bring unresolved mental threads into conversations, seeking to untie them by conversation or sympathy. Example, a friend keeps rehashing a breakup detail at brunch, each time sounding more exhausted. A cat repeats a nap cycle until food appears, not a rerun of past slights. 3. Catastrophizing. Turning small problems into cinematic disasters is emotionally contagious and exhausting to witness. When every minor setback becomes the worst thing possible, you end up carrying an amplified emotional weight. Example, a flat tire becomes a prophecy of impending life collapse in a 5-minute rant. A dog whines, checks the tire, and waits for someone to fix it. 4. Confirmation-seeking thought loops. People hunt for evidence to prove how they feel, and then bring that evidence to you like an exhibit. It's draining because the conversation becomes a trial rather than a repair shop. Example, a colleague selectively quotes one negative email and uses it to prove their entire boss hates them. A pet relies on direct cues. Hungry now equals meow now. No second guessing. 5. Ontological anxiety. Meaning-making overdrive. Humans obsess over meaning. Was that gesture meaningful? What does their silence mean? That search for hidden textures turns every interaction into a puzzle. Example, after a curt text, someone analyzes tone, timing, and weather to decode a relationship's future. A dog interprets a tweet of affection as, well, a treat. No metafilter required. Overgeneralization. One bad interaction becomes the rule for all future interactions in the storyteller's head. That's exhausting because it paints entire people or situations with an emotional broad brush. Example, he ghosted me once, all men are unreliable, delivered mid-coffee. A pet overgeneralizes too. If the food bowl is empty, it's empty. The solution is practical and immediate. 7. Decision fatigue leakage. When people are low on willpower, their patience for social nuance evaporates and they offload that friction onto others. That means terse comments, cranky asks, and emotional spare parts handed to whoever's present. Example, someone snaps about an innocuous choice at dinner because their brain's been deciding all day. A pet simply repeats requests until the desired action is taken. 8. Mental time travel overload. Humans replay the past and forecast the future constantly. That cognitive stretching consumes attention and energy in conversations because you're partly talking to yesterday's or tomorrow's version of someone, not their present one. Example, a friend keeps referencing future disasters during a movie night, making relaxation impossible. A cat's time travel is limited to next nap and next treat. If this is landing for you, if you're recognizing these moments in yourself or in your dinner companions, hit like and subscribe. There's a long list ahead, and if you enjoy psychological deep dives wrapped in sarcasm, there's more where this came from. Cluster 2. Emotional habits. How people manage or fail to manage feelings. 9. Emotional dumping. Some people use others as a dumpster for immediate emotional offloads, unfiltered and heavy. It's draining because it expects emotional labor from you on demand. Example, a roommate storms into the kitchen and unloads a full workday meltdown on passive listeners. A dog's emotional expression is brief and needs-focused. I'm scared, I want to be held. 10. Chronic complaining with low solutions. Complaining becomes a habit rather than a problem-solving tool. It's a social pattern that asks for empathy without seeking change. Hearing complaint after complaint without action saps your engagement. Example, a friend lists grievances about their job every week but refuses to job search or ask for support. A pet signals discomfort and then either returns to comfort or changes behavior. No rumination. 11. Victim identity loops. When someone frames most setbacks as external injustices, conversation stays centered on grievance rather than resolution. That narrative draws attention and energy into proving victimhood rather than healing. Example, a family member insists they were always wronged and anchors each interaction to that history. A pet doesn't wear a narrative cloak, it reacts directly to current stimuli. 12. Need for constant reassurance. Seeking repeated validation is understandable, but exhausting because it demands ongoing emotional investment.
People ask for proof of love, competence, or worth as a safety ritual. Example, do you still like me? Pinged 20 minutes after a meeting ends. A dog asks for affection and then rests secure for a while. 13. Emotional oscillation, high drama. Mood swings that create emotional roller coasters make you brace for impact. When someone's emotional state shifts unpredictably, it forces others into constant calibration mode. Example, a friend alternates euphoria and despair in the span of an hour, leaving you unsure how to respond. A pet's mood changes are generally linear and readable. 14. Performance of suffering. Some people signal their pain publicly, partly to be seen, partly because it confers moral high ground or attention. That performance can keep interactions in a loop of caretaking without resolution. Example, social media posts that dramatize minor inconveniences into tragedies, soliciting comment threads of sympathy. Pets display discomfort but rarely craft narratives about it. 15. Shame recycling. People who carry shame often seek external absolution by recounting shameful stories repeatedly. That's draining because the listener becomes a confessional partner with no ending. Example, someone retells an embarrassing mistake at every group gathering, seeking relief that never comes. A pet may experience embarrassment, if you can call it that, but doesn't narrate it. No recurring story. Cluster 3. Social dynamics. How relationships demand energy. 16. Attention economy play. People compete for attention. Drama, outrage, and confession are currency. This competition turns conversations into contests for emotional space, which tires everyone out. Example, in a friend group chat, someone pushes a personal crisis into the spotlight to reclaim attention. A pet gets rewarded by attention when they do something simple, no strategic campaigning. 17. Status signaling and one-upmanship. Subtle or not so subtle brags and comparisons turn social exchanges into indirect competitions. That's draining because it requires constant image management and counters from listeners. Example, that was cute, I guess, but wait until you hear about my promotion, offered as casual dinner banter. A pet doesn't care about social rank in the human sense. Their status is belly up or not. 18. Emotional labor imbalance. When one person is expected to manage others' emotions regularly, resentment builds and energy drains. It's the unpaid work of smoothing moods, remembering birthdays, moderating arguments. Example, one partner always consoles everyone, plans holidays, and keeps the emotional calendar, then feels exhausted and unseen. A pet's emotional labor is reciprocal but simple, affection returned proportionally to petting and treats. 19. Passive aggression and indirection. People often avoid direct requests and instead use subtleties, sighs, or sarcasm, forcing others to decode grievances. That decoding is mentally taxing. Leaving a note that says fine with an underlined fine for days until someone confronts the issue. A pet will paw, bark, or stare until the want is met. Clarity beats mystery. 20. Social comparison in real time. Humans measure themselves against each other constantly, and those comparison conversations leak into interactions. Hearing someone constantly benchmark themselves, I did X, did you, becomes performance fatigue for listeners. Example, at brunch, someone constantly annotates experiences with comparative metrics. I ran 10 miles, what about you? Pets don't keep leaderboards, they follow straightforward reinforcement. 21. Guilt-driven obligations. People accept emotional obligations out of guilt, then complain about them, creating a drip of resentment you absorb. That means interactions are laced with unmet expectations and fragile generosity. Example, "I shouldn't say no to Aunt Karen's requests," becomes a recurring lament that invites intervention or second guessing. Pets ask and respond directly, without guilt theater. 22. The drama magnet. Some people inadvertently draw conflict like a magnet. Unresolved personal patterns trigger group tension. Being near that energy means you're often cleaning up other people's messes. Example, a friend's volatile boundaries lead to fights everyone else has to mediate. A pet creates minimal collateral. A chewed slipper is easier to manage than a week-long feud. Cluster 4. Personality and attachment. Internal wiring that spreads outward. 23. Anxious attachment tendencies. People who need frequent reassurance will test and retest relationships to feel secure. That needs bandwidth from others. Conversations become safety checks rather than mutual exchanges. Example, frequent "are you mad at me" texts after every social gathering. A pet checks proximity and returns to contentment once validated. 24. Avoidant patterns, emotional withdrawing. Some people protect themselves by pulling away, which paradoxically demands energy from others who chase or worry. That push-pull dynamic leaves partners exhausted. Example, someone withdraws after conflict, triggering intense outreach and worry. A pet will retreat to their bed and re-emerge when ready. No emotional triangulation. 25. Perfectionism pressure. Perfectionist tendencies turn every interaction into a performance review, making conversations about standards rather than presence. This is draining because it plants anxiety and critique in social air. Example, family members debate who made the food correctly and turn a casual gathering into a judgment panel. Pets accept imperfect bulls and imperfect pats with blissful contentment. 26. High neuroticism tendency. People prone to higher emotional reactivity experience more intense negative emotions and bring them into social spaces. That intensity demands soothing and recalibration from whoever is present. Example, small setbacks explode into full-blown worry episodes that require emotional triage.
A pet's mood fluctuates, but the intensity is generally simpler and more bounded. 27. Dependency patterns. When someone depends on you for emotional or practical stability, they may unintentionally offload ongoing maintenance tasks. That creates chronic obligation. Example, a friend expects you to be the primary listener for all issues, expecting availability without balancing reciprocation. A pet depends on you but rarely negotiates your emotional bandwidth. They simply accept care. 28. Need for control. People who need to control situations extract energy by micromanaging plans, conversations, and outcomes, often turning flexibility into tension. That's exhausting because it removes ease and turns moments into maneuvers. Example, a group trip becomes a checklist under one person's command, sucking the spontaneity out of everyone. A pet's control is simpler. Choose the sunlit spot and demand it. 29. Overdeveloped empathy, emotional saturation. Some people feel other people's emotions intensely, which is beautiful until it's overwhelming. They absorb others' distress and then need recovery, creating cycles of drain you witness. Example, a friend comes home a wreck after hearing about a stranger's misfortune and needs comfort themselves. A pet displays empathy simply, leans in and stays there, easier to witness and less cognitively heavy. Cluster 5. Behavioral routines, habits that leak energy. 30. Chronic procrastination fallout. Procrastination forces last-minute emotional crises on others. The urgency and stress get exported into shared spaces. Example, a roommate waits until the last minute to flag a bill, creating a 48-hour panic jamboree. A pet's routine is clockwork. Feed, sleep, repeat. No looming deadlines. 31. Attention-seeking rituals. Some behaviors are explicitly designed to pull gaze, loud anecdotes, dramatic entrances, or public complaints. Attention-seeking keeps social focus on the person at cost to group calm. Example, someone interrupts conversations with confessional monologues for a hit of attention. A pet's attention-seeking is adorable and immediate. A head bump gets the job done. 33. Repetitive storytelling, the favorite old song. Repeating the same stories taps listener patience. Without novelty, engagement thins. This pattern shows up when the teller is emotionally self-soothing rather than connecting. Example, the friend who always tells the same road trip tale and interprets lack of enthusiasm as betrayal. A pet repeats learned behaviors for outcomes, treats, not for social reassurance. 33. Over-explaining, verbal overdraft. When people feel insecure, they pile on explanations, turning simple interactions brittle and long. That verbosity drains conversational energy. Example, a neighbor explains for 10 minutes why they bought a lamp, seeking approval. A pet's message is concise and immediate. Hunger, affection, fetch. 34.
Hyperbolic language. Using exaggerated terms makes small problems sound seismic, amplifying emotional reactions across the room. You expend energy calibrating tone and assessing reality. Example, it was the worst day of my life, used for a burnt toast incident. A pet communicates in proportional cues, loud if urgent, soft if content. 35. Ritualized drama, creating crisis. Some people manufacture tension to feel alive. Predictability breeds boredom, so they create peaks. Those peaks are exhausting for everyone else. Example, a partner stages an intense argument to reawaken intimacy, then leaves everyone emotionally winded. A pet's drama is generally confined to chasing the red dot. Cluster 6. Environmental and life stage factors, situational drains. 36. Chronic stress overflow. When life stress accumulates, financial pressure, caregiving, work overload, people have less emotional bandwidth and unwittingly offload that onto relationships. That creates an ambient heaviness others feel. Example, a parent under chronic stress becomes short with friends and family, needing more support. A pet's stress is often visible and actionable, vet visit or walk. 37. Caregiver burnout echoes. Those who care for others full-time may have depleted reserves and then project irritability or clinginess. The emotional deficit becomes contagious. Example, a nurse friend snaps at casual plans because home life is 24/7 care. A pet's caregiving is exchanged in immediate reciprocation. Petting yields purrs. 38. Social isolation compensation. People who lack diverse social outlets lean heavily on a few relationships, concentrating demands on them. That imbalance drains the primary relationship. Example, an only child friend funnels all social needs through you and expects constant availability. A pet has a simple network: human, food, favorite human, manageable proportions. 39. Transitional life crises. Big life changes, divorce, relocation, career shifts, create temporary but intense neediness as people reorient. Those spikes demand attention and understanding from those around them. Example, after a layoff, someone calls and reprocesses identity questions nightly. A pet adjusts routines faster, anchored in daily rituals. 40. Cultural pressure and role strain. Societal expectations, parenting ideals, career ladders put pressure on people who then export anxiety into relationships. That's draining because it mixes identity questions with interpersonal friction. Example, a parent worried about doing it right invites constant debate and advice at family dinners. A pet does not occupy a cultural expectation metaspace. Their rule is straightforward to them and to us. Microhook. That explains why people bring their interior weather into shared rooms. Next up, social media, communication quirks, and the boundary failures that make moments sticky. Cluster 7. Communication styles. The ways speech makes people tired. 41. Vague language and ambiguity. When people speak in hints and vagaries, conversations turn into decoding expeditions, requiring mental energy to interpret intent. That leaves you exhausted by the end of the night. Example, we should hang out sometime without specifics becomes an emotional placeholder for rejection or commitment. A pet makes clear requests. Scratch means attention now. Passive information flooding. People share too much too often, overloaded updates that demand emotional triage, not engagement. Social bandwidth gets consumed by processing irrelevant detail. Example, a friend narrates every minor upset of their day as if you are a live feed. A pet shares relevant cues only when necessary. Interrupting and conversational hijacking. When people repeatedly interrupt or steer conversations to themselves, it feels like emotional theft. You lose the chance to fully participate. Example, you mention an issue and the other person immediately flips the script to their own experience. A pet's interruptions are literal and simple. Tail on your leg until you pet them. Monologic interaction style. Some people give long soliloquies instead of dialoguing. Conversations become one-way broadcasts that tire listeners. Example, someone lectures for 20 minutes about a hobby and doesn't pause for a single question. A pet's communication is bidirectional and immediate, signal and response. Loaded questions and interrogatives. Questions that imply judgment coax defensiveness and energy investment. People respond emotionally rather than practically. Example,
Why would you even do that? Frames conversations as trials. A pet's questioning looks like a tilt of the head and a hopeful stare, not an accusation. Cluster 8. Boundary and expectation failures, the relational leak points. Poor no practices. Difficulty saying no translates into overcommitment. Then the person becomes a source of ongoing logistical and emotional strain. Example, someone agrees to every favor and then floods friends with follow-up pleadings and explanations. A pet's no looks like refusing a treat, clear and accepted. Expectation mismatch. When people carry unstated expectations into interactions, any deviation becomes a perceived betrayal, spinning unnecessary conflict. Example, one sibling expects help at dinner and interprets a late arrival as cruelty. A pet signals needs clearly. Hunger equals meow equals feeding. Boundary testing. People sometimes push limits to see how others respond, which creates tension and emotional whiplash. It's exhausting because it requires constant monitoring and correction. Example, a friend keeps calling past agreed-upon hours to test availability. A pet tests boundaries too, chewing shoes, but the response is direct and teaches a specific consequence. Emotional entitlement. When individuals assume your time and emotional labor is owed to them, interactions become one-sided demands. That entitlement is draining because it bypasses mutual consent. Example, expecting immediate reassurances, regardless of your own availability. A pet's entitlement is adorable and usually negotiable. Paws on your lap and a clear want. 50. Vague reciprocity norms. Without clear reciprocity, relationships accumulate one-sided labor. People expect emotional returns without articulating them, leaving others confused and fatigued. Example, someone offers advice and expects gratitude instead of support, then resents perceived ingratitude. A pet reciprocates simply. Affection begets purrs. Pause and reframe. Why draining is information, not condemnation. Before we press on, let's slow down for a quick breath. Calling someone draining often feels like a verdict. They're a bad person, they're beyond help. But mostly, draining is a signal, an engine light signaling a mismatch between energy given and energy received. It's a data point about relational fit, capacity, and context. Think of it this way. The person in front of you might be low on sleep, living in a stress cycle, wired for anxious attachment, or simply in a phase of life where their bandwidth is small. They might also be habitually reaching for attention because they were never taught another way. None of this invalidates your right to preserve your energy. It merely suggests that the cause is often repairable, or at minimum, nameable. 3 immediate micro-strategies you can apply when faced with a draining moment. Name the behavior, not the person. I'm noticing we've been circling this topic a lot tonight. Naming reduces drama and externalizes the pattern. Time box the interaction. I can talk for 20 minutes now, and then I need a break. Boundaries are a kindness to you and to the other person. Clear, finite timeframes reduce escalation. Offer a small, practical option. Do you want me to listen for 20 minutes or help draft a plan? Redirects diffuse rumination into either containment or action. We're just getting warmed up. The reasons above, cognitive loops, emotional habits, social mechanics, personality wiring, behavioral routines, environmental pressures, communication quirks, and boundary failures, are the broad families that explain why human interactions often feel like emotional heavy lifting. Pets usually sets these aside because their needs and signals are materially simpler: food, comfort, routine, and direct feedback. Next up, we'll dig into social media amplification, the performative cycles that turn private stress into public spectacle, and then we'll spend a longer stretch on the biggest systemic drains: chronic insecurity, emotional labor imbalances, and attachment dynamics, and give practical, scripted micro-tools for setting boundaries without guilt. Those tools are what turn "this person drains me" into "this behavior is something I can manage."
But first, let's take the next cluster and see how our online lives and modern norms turbocharge the draining behaviors we already have. Social media is the supercharger for a lot of the behaviors we already named. It takes perfectly normal human anxieties and turns them into public performances, feedback loops, and algorithmically rewarded extremes. That means a private insecurity becomes a public storyline, and you, if you're friends, followers, or just scrolling at midnight, end up carrying a piece of that storyline in your head. Start with the mechanics. Platforms reward engagement. Engagement is rarely subtle. Outrage, confession, and cliffhanger drama get the clicks. So what was once an anxious text becomes a performative thread titled "Why My Life is Falling Apart," Part 3. The person posting may be asking for solace, validation, or accountability,
Or they may be trying to win attention in a crowded digital room, but the net effect is the same. Other humans are invited to do emotional work on demand, often asynchronously and repeatedly. A pet posting prowess would look like, I saw it in the sun, I received a treat, I am content. No threaded subtext, no follower metrics, no inbox to manage. Here are the main ways social media turbocharges drain. Public rumination. Problems are processed out loud, repeatedly. That invites people into rounds of commentary and caretaking they didn't sign up for. Feedback loops of reassurance. Likes and comments act like micro-reassurances that train someone to seek validation from an endless, unreliable crowd. Amplified catastrophizing. Small setbacks can be turned into serialized tragedy, building dramatic pressure across weeks. Parasocial intensity. Creators and followers develop one-sided emotional relationships where followers feel responsible or morally invested. Outrage economy. Moral certainty and hot takes attract engagement, making people escalate to stay visible. Contrast to pets, your dog doesn't post a 12-part saga about the vacuum trainer. They bark, you fix it, the episode ends. Humans, with their meta needs and social currencies, can turn one incident into a franchise. Now let's move into the deeper treatments, the high-impact systemic reasons that tend to create recurrent drain in relationships and give you usable pocket-sized tools you can start using immediately. These are the patterns that show up again and again in our lists, the ones that make people feel chronically exhausting rather than occasionally challenging. Chronic insecurity, why it sprouts. Chronic insecurity is less a diagnosis and more a recurring pattern, persistent worry about worth, belonging, and future outcomes. It colors conversations with neediness, repeated reassurance seeking, and amplified threat perception.
Someone with chronic insecurity might read a neutral text as rejection, rehearse perceived slights for days, and seek confirmation from multiple people until they get the proof that temporarily quiets them. Why it drains others. Security seekers often require frequent calibration. Reassurance is a short-term fix. It addresses the symptom, the immediate fear, without always changing the underlying cognitive loops that generate it. For the person on the receiving end, that creates repetition, 100 little safety checks that demand an emotional response, time, and sometimes logistical labor. Pet contrast. A pet's insecurity is usually straightforward. Separation anxiety, fear of thunder, and the intervention is direct. A walk, a chew toy, presence. The loop is simpler, and the return on intervention is clearer. Micro tools for handling chronic insecurity. The reflect and reframe script. I hear you're worried. That must feel heavy. I'm not going to solve this right now, but I can sit with you for 10 minutes and then help you make a small plan. This validates emotion while setting a limit and offering a concrete next step. The checklist redirect. Convert reassurance into action steps. Instead of saying, you're fine, ask, do you have a list of what could actually help right now? Turning reassurance into problem solving mitigates replay. The scheduled safety check. Offer a predictable brief check-in at a set time each day. Predictability reduces ad hoc drain. Emotional labor imbalance, the hidden economy of relationships. Emotional labor is the invisible work of keeping people emotionally okay. Remembering birthdays, calming fights, de-escalating at dinners, giving pep talks. When one person takes on most of that work, whether because they're naturally responsive, socially rewarded for it, or coerced by expectation, their tank runs low. Resentment builds. They become brittle. Others start to experience a low hum of exhaustion whenever they meet. Why it drains others. This imbalance is contagious because it often asymmetrically concentrates the expectation of care. The emotionally laboring person becomes both caretaker and, paradoxically, the one who needs replenishment. Yet they're sometimes criticized for not doing more or for failing to set limits. The resulting dynamic is messy and draining because it requires constant negotiation and emotional triage. Pet contrast. Pets exchange affection and care in simpler loops. Feed, walk, cuddle, where reciprocity is tangible and immediate. The inputs and outputs are easier to read. Micro tools for rebalancing emotional labor. Name the load out loud. I've realized I've been handling most of the planning for family events. I need help. Can we split this? Naming moves the issue from implicit to negotiable. Implement rotating responsibility. For repetitive emotional tasks like holiday planning, check-in calls, set up a rotation or shared calendar so the labor is not invisible.
Use the I need a refill frame. Instead of blaming, use a personal need statement. I'm getting low. I love helping, but I need to pace myself so I can be present. Attachment anxiety. How close hunger looks like neediness.
Attachment-related patterns, especially anxious-style tendencies, manifest as frequent testing behaviors, need for reassurance, monitoring, and interpreting ambiguous cues as threats. It's not manipulative in most cases. It's an attempt to secure connection through available behaviors. Why it drains. These patterns demand ongoing proof of safety. They can trigger caretaking loops where the other person becomes responsible for the distressed partner's regulation rather than co-regulating. Over time, that becomes emotionally exhaustive. Pet contrast. Pets seek proximity and then self-soothe. There's less narrative evaluation. They don't revisit, "Did you mean what you said?" 12 times. Micro tools for responding to attachment-driven behaviors. Use brief, consistent reassurances rather than long debates. "I care about you. I can't respond right now, but I will check in at 8 p.m. Consistency beats long explanations. Encourage self-soothing tools. Suggest resources like journaling prompts, breathing apps, or a short grounding routine to reduce reliance on you as the sole regulator. Boundaries that teach. If late-night reassurance texts are draining, reply once with clarity and a plan. "I'll respond in the morning. If this feels urgent, please call." That sets expectation and provides a safety valve. A practical boundary script kit. 3 ready-to-use lines. Boundaries are less about putting up a wall and more about making interaction sustainable. Here are short, humane scripts for common draining scenarios. Use your voice and warm tone. The point is clarity, not cruelty. For the chronic dumper. "I want to support you, and I notice these conversations are getting long. I can listen for 20 minutes now, and then I'll need to step away. Do you want the 20 minutes or a plan to handle this?" For the reassurance seeker in the middle of your day. "I care about you. I can't give this the attention it deserves right now. Can we set a time tonight to talk for 30 minutes? For the someone who tests boundaries by calling late. "I don't take calls after 10 p.m. unless it's an emergency. If you need immediate help, call a local hotline. I'll be available in the morning." For repeated complaint without action. "I hear how frustrated you are. Would it help if we brainstormed one small step you can try this week?"
The 2-minute limit. "I can give you 2 minutes to vent. After that, I have to go." Short, compassionate, clear. The redirection move. "This sounds big. Do you want me to listen or help you make a plan?" Either offers containment or action. The empathy sandwich. "That sounds awful. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. I can check in tomorrow." Brief empathy plus clear follow-up. What to do when setting a boundary backfires. Boundaries can provoke testy responses, especially from people used to unconstrained access. If a boundary triggers escalation, don't retrocede out of guilt. Instead, keep the boundary in place and repeat it calmly once. "I said I need to step away now. I'll be back at 7. Repetition ends many arguments that are attempts to negotiate anxiety rather than facts. Offer alternative containment. "I can't engage right now. If this is urgent, can you call someone else or use a resource? If not, let's schedule time tomorrow." Reassess obligations. If someone continually punishes your boundary, consider whether the relationship is balanced. You can be compassionate and still protect your limits. Why pets help us practice boundaries and why that's useful. Pets model a simpler exchange: need, signal, intervention or not. Because their signals are predictable and their responses immediate, they train us in responsive caregiving without the layered meta-needs humans bring. Practically, pets can be a laboratory for boundary practice. You can teach a dog not to jump up, for example, and then apply the same principle, clear, consistent consequence, to human interactions. Pets do not negotiate guilt. They respond to consistent feedback. That's a useful reminder that some human behavior, when handled with clarity, can shift. Empathy without self-erasure. A trap many people fall into is the false choice between being compassionate and preserving boundaries. You can do both. Empathy does not require removing your own limits. It requires naming the other person's pain and naming your capacity honestly. Try this format. "I see you're hurting." Empathy. "I want to be supportive, but I can't do that right now without draining my own energy." Boundary. "Can we plan a time when I can be fully present?" This approach respects both needs. 3 small behavioral experiments you can run this week. If this whole list has drudged up a dozen people in your life, here are 3 tiny experiments that teach both compassion and limits. 1. The 20-20 rule. Offer 20 uninterrupted minutes and then stop. Track how often people can accept that container. Most people will adopt quickly to finite attention. 2. The scheduled check-in. If you're the person who gets pulled into others' dramas, propose a predictable weekly check-in. It reduces ad hoc saving and gives people a dependable outlet.
3. The accountability ask. When someone chronically complains without action, ask them, what do you want me to do next? Force the transition from sympathetic nodding to a practical next step. A short note on humility. Sometimes draining is your data, not their indictment. It's worth circling back to the idea that feeling drained is information, not a moral tag. If someone drains you, it could be a mismatch in needs, an external crisis, or simply incompatible energy styles. Before you decide someone is unfixably draining, check 3 things on yourself. Are you actually low on sleep or bandwidth? Is this person in a temporary crisis? Are you tolerating behavior you would normally correct because you feel guilty? Sometimes the fix is self-care. Sometimes it's compassion. Sometimes it's boundary setting. Rarely is the right first move a wholesale moral judgment. A friendly protocol for longer relationships. If you're in a long-term relationship with someone who frequently exhausts you, a single script won't suffice. Use a short protocol instead. It's a mini plan for recurring interventions. 1. Observe. Name the pattern without blame. I've noticed we circle this topic a lot. 2. Clarify impact. Explain how it affects you. I get exhausted and then snap, which isn't fair to either of us. 3. Offer structure. Propose a practical change. Can we agree on a 30-minute problem-solving slot every Wednesday? 4. Reassess. After 2 weeks, check in on how it's working and tweak. This protocol treats the behavior as a shared problem, not a personal failing. It invites collaboration while preserving your energy. Final reframing. Humans are draining because they ask for what pets do not need to ask for. The through line of this entire list is simple. Humans come with meta needs. We need identity, meaning, future security, narrative coherence, and social proof. Those needs are complex and often unspoken, and when they go unmet, they manifest as behaviors that cost emotional energy. Pets, by contrast, have fewer layers. Their needs are direct, their feedback immediate. That contrast isn't an indictment of people. It's an observation that helps you respond more sensibly. 3 final, bite-sized action steps you can take right now. Name 1 drainer in your life and choose 1 microscript from the kit above. Use it this week. Schedule 1 20-minute time box check-in for someone who often offloads on you. Offer structure. Practice self-audit. Notice when your own bandwidth is low and say so. I'm low on energy today. Can we put this on pause? If you do those 3 things, you'll begin to see the pattern more clearly. Which drains are fixable, which are temporary, and which are signals of a deeper mismatch. Which reason hit hardest for you? Was it the rumination, the attention economy, or one of the attachment moves? Drop a comment sharing the number or the short label that felt most familiar. Let's make the comment thread an honest, low-drama spot for insight.
If you found this useful, like and subscribe for more psychology deep dives, served with a dash of sarcasm. Share this with someone you care about, maybe over a cup of coffee, maybe beside a calm, oblivious dog, so you can both practice better boundaries together. Humans are complicated, messy, and often loud. That makes us endlessly interesting and occasionally exhausting. But exhaustion is not a verdict, it's a clue. Name the pattern, set the limit, offer a container, and watch a lot of the noise shrink. Dogs will still be simpler, and cats will still demand attention on their own inscrutable schedule. But you'll be better at handling both kinds of demand, the immediate, literal ones and the layered, human-heavy ones.